So Daniel is a successful entrepreneur, international speaker, 3-time best-selling author, and he actually ran his first $10 million company in revenue before the age of 25, and now runs business accelerators all around the world. So for those of you that are looking to journey into entrepreneurship, early in entrepreneurship, you'll want to make sure to pay attention to this segment. We're going to dive into all of the how-tos. Daniel, welcome to the summit. Fill in any gaps that I might have left out and give us a glimpse into your personal life.
Oh, into my personal life. So I'm a dad. I'm a dad. I like long walks on the beach and snowboarding. I live here in London. I absolutely love London. I was born in Australia. I grew up on a place called the Sunshine Coast, which is the real name of a place. It's how we name places in Australia. There's a place with red cliffs, and we call that Red Cliff. And there's a place that's very, very sunny on the coast. We call that the Sunshine Coast. So I grew up in Australia, moved to London, most of my background is very entrepreneurial. I started out with entrepreneurial ventures when I was about 10 years old, running garage sales in the local neighborhood and making hundreds of dollars actually doing joint ventures with our neighbors to sell their stuff for them in my garage sales. And then I run nightclub parties and door-to-door flower selling, and then started companies in my 20s.
Yeah, I love that. So what were your parents like as you were growing up? Like, I hear this, their young kid is convincing their neighbors for the garage sales, the flowers. How are they?
They were really supportive, and like thinking about it now as a dad, it would be really weird. It's like, why don't you go play with a computer or something, or ride bikes? And actually what happened is that we had this little house fire. One of my first entrepreneurial memories, we had this little house fire in the kitchen. Mum was cooking some fries and it leapt up onto the curtains and it created smoke damage on all the stuff. And this gave me the idea that this problem that had happened could actually be this really great thing to clean the stuff and sell it. And I got it in my head that I was going to clean all the stuff that was damaged and have a garage sale and sell it. And when I laid all the things out on the table, I had this massage table that I used as my sales table of all the things. There wasn't enough stuff. So I realized pretty quick that I didn't have enough stock. So I started knocking on all the neighbors' doors and saying, can I put your stuff into my garage sale and we'll split it 50-50. Where does a 10-year-old get that as an idea? Like, split it 50-50. Do you mind if I put your stock in my garage sale on consignment?
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that looking back on it now as a dad, I was like, were your parents entrepreneurial at all? Or?
Well, I'll tell you, my dad, one moment in that story that's fun is that I was negotiating with this guy who wanted to beat me down on price for the microwave oven. And he said, "Can I speak to your dad?" And I went, "Oh, I must have said something wrong because I didn't go too low on the price." And my dad came out and said, "Yep, can I help you?" And he said, your son's got the microwave on for $30 and I want to pay $20. Will you take $20? And my dad looks at him, he goes, "It's not my garage sale, it's his garage sale. You have to negotiate with him." And it was like this, wow, I'm in charge. I think Dad actually said he's in charge. And it was like, I am in charge of my garage sale. It was a lovely moment. My dad was a school teacher. My mum was a journalist. She's a great, writer. Dad later left school teaching, started a newspaper, a rock and roll music newspaper, and was very much an entrepreneur. And then he got into desktop publishing in the early days of doing graphic design at home. So Dad always had one person home-based businesses where he would sort of, do the graphic design. Later he got into consulting and training. So there's actually quite a situation where the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, given the fact that my mum's a writer and my dad does training, coaching and business.
Yeah. So if we were a fly on the wall as you were like in grade school, high school, like what kind of kid were you besides this like quirky kid that was coming up with all these different business ventures? But were you nerdy? Did you have lots of friends? Like, were you engaged with school very much, or were you always kind of tinkering on the side?
I was definitely the kid that never ever did any homework. Like I turned up to school for the social element. I was very present in class, engaged in what we were doing, but then completely forgot it and did no homework. And I prided myself on being the kid that went between the gangs. So the cool kids in our school sat at I block, and that was like, if you were cool, you sat at I block, and you're a surfer and you're very good looking, and and you mean to all the other people and all that sort of stuff, right? That's the I blockers. And if you were pretty geeky, you sat on the basketball courts and did that. And then if you're really geeky, there are a few other pockets around. And I kind of prided myself on having friends in all the pockets, and some days I would sit down at I block, and some days I'd go to the basketball courts, some days I'd go to the other spots. So I kind of connected the dots. I had very bad acne in school. I was 100% convinced that no one would ever find me attractive in any way, shape or form. So I had no girlfriends through all of high school. And then later on, like years later, one of the girls who I totally crushed on said, "Oh, I was totally into you, but you never made any move." And I was like, "Wow, okay."
Nice.
So I was everyone's friend. I was the friend guy. I put myself in the friend zone.
Yeah, nice. So after high school, did you go to college, or when did your first business, like real business, start to emerge? I know you had definitely probably made money throughout the other businesses, but the first big one.
Okay, so I went to college, and I spent the first year realizing that college had nothing to do with entrepreneurship. I was deeply, deeply disappointed that the college lecturers didn't have businesses. I don't know where I got it in my head, but I had this thought that if you went to college, or university in Australia as we call it, that there would be these people there who had sold companies, built big companies, and now were giving back by teaching at university. Don't know where I got that idea, but when I turned up,
It would be
none of them.
amazing.
Yeah, it would be amazing. I think it was like the idea that you get from Stanford, or the idea you get from Harvard, or one of these like top universities, but it certainly wasn't happening at Griffith University in Australia. So anyway, I quit. And I went and worked for this 30-year-old entrepreneur for about 6 months, and it went horribly wrong. He got me doing all these horrible, horrible jobs. And I was really depressed and sad and thought I'd made a huge mistake. And then my parents had some friends who knew someone else who was a very successful entrepreneur living in a massive beachfront mansion, who was starting a new company, multimillionaire, like a stunning home, like just beautiful. Anyway, they teed up this meeting for me to go and meet the guy, and I went and met John, and I was there for a 30-minute meeting, and we talked for 3 hours, and I became his sidekick. So I basically, I drove him to the airport, I followed up on sales calls, I placed ads in the newspaper, I licked stamps and put them on envelopes. I shadowed him to every meeting that I could possibly go to. And for 2 years, I was literally his dog's body. Whatever he needed doing, I was just doing it. And that involved intense selling. So one of the things I had to do was like make 70 phone calls a day to just get through these lists of people that we had to get back to. Another thing I had to do was to generate leads. So I had to run ads. Another thing I had to do was to do face-to-face sales. So I would do 10 to 12 face-to-face meetings in a day, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, going through to 8 and 9 o'clock at night. There was a week where I was doing face-to-face selling 2 hours drive from where I lived, and I would drive at 5 o'clock in the morning till 7, and then drive back at 11, sleep as much as I could, and then drive back. And I did that for about a couple of weeks straight. So I was just, really immersed in this startup that he was doing. And in that, I was like kind of the third person to join the team. And by the end of year 2, we were at 40 or 50 people.
Yeah.
And so I'd been through that, and we'd moved the office from his big, beautiful home in Noosa down to Melbourne. We'd hired this horrible general manager who I hated and I clashed with. And then at the end of 2 years, I said, enough is enough. I feel like I used to be special in this company, and now I'm not special. I'm just one of these people on the phones. I felt that I'd lost my relationship with John. and that there was a moment where I had generated something like a $70,000 profit within my little division, and I got a $500 bonus. And that's because everyone kind of got a $500 bonus, but I just felt really entitled that I should have had something special.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I said enough is enough. I went out and I put the $500 behind the bar. I invited some friends and we just drunk it, and then with my hangover, I decided I was going to start my own company.
Nice.
And the cool thing that had happened is that during that whole 2 years, John had asked me to put loads of things on my credit card. So advertising, flights, and he would always pay it back within a week or so. But that had given me this insane credit rating for a 21-year-old. And I had a $22,000 credit card limit, which, this is a while ago. So this was a big credit card limit.
At 21, yeah.
Right. And so I decided I was going to launch a business on my credit card, and I would have to make enough money from the 55 days from launch to pay back the credit card. So I basically had to create a plan where I would launch, put all expenses on the credit card, and then make money and then pay off the credit card.
Yeah. So I want to go into that. And before we do, I want to talk about the conversation going back just a little bit with John before that your parents had teed up, because I think that there's a lot that could have happened in that conversation, like 30 minutes turning into 3 hours, for example.
Yeah.
And if you, in hindsight, could look back on it, like, what do you think made it so successful? Like, I imagine someone hearing this that's like, okay, I'm looking for a mentor, or I'm wanting to like get my in somewhere. Like, what kind of being were you that made it workable for him to be like, yes, come in, let me take you under my wing, like, let me make you my sidekick kind of deal?
It was, I'm trying to remember because it's such a while ago, and I don't remember the specific words, but I just remember there being chemistry. And it was just this, we sat down, the conversation was flowing. I noticed a book on his shelf. I asked him about that book. He opened it up and we started going through line by line and talking about different ideas. And then I was asking about his business. I wish I could give you a guide as to how I did it or what was said, but it was actually, unfortunately, it was just chemistry. We really just, it was just one of those moments where you click. And he was 37 at the time. I was I must have been 19. So I think I must have showed up to him as just this young, energetic, eager to learn, passionate, stupid, but moldable kind of young guy. Like I think he probably would have seen me as someone who was passionate and teachable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it sounds like with the guy before, the 6 months before with the other guy, you were clear that you weren't getting value from that. But with this guy, it was worth putting in the crazy hours, driving to these like face-to-face sales, doing this stuff around the clock. So how did you know that that was worth it as you were doing it? And for anyone listening, like, when do you think it's worthwhile to put in the time for something greater to get that experience? And when is it not?
Well, I didn't feel like I was being exploited. The first time around, I just felt that I was just cheap labor. And John would always take time to give me the lesson. So rather than like, here, stuff these envelopes, he would talk to me about the importance of lead generation. And he would talk to me about the cost per lead, that you have to manage cost per lead. And then he would talk me through like he'd say, just let's sit down and I'll show you what I've written to all these people. And he would show me the marketing copy, and he'd say, this is why I started with this line, and this is why I put this, and here's why I've put these two, things in here, and I've put these 3 key bullet points as the main bullet points. Anyway, so that's the letter, and what we're going to ask people. This is what's called a call to action, and a call to action means we want them to do something. So they're going to call that number, and then the phone's going to come in, and you're going to get those calls. But it was just kind of like I was on the job learning, and it was not just stuff these envelopes. It was, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone that's listening, that's looking to take a mentorship role with someone, and I imagine you might have, at this point have had people that have used you as a mentor. What?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm on the other end now.
Yeah.
I got a team full of, like, I got 50 people in 12 time zones now, and most of my people are under 20. Like, so many of them are under 25, and I find myself being the wise old owl instead of the cool young eager to learn guy.
Yeah. So what do you think it takes to be a good mentee for someone that's looking for a mentor, being in the role that you are now, for someone that's listening?
Well, there's a young guy who asked me for help a couple of months ago, and he said, "How can I fit in with you?" He goes, "I really want to just learn a little bit from you. I've got some specific challenges I want to run past you. I'm really happy to turn up anytime, any place, and make it so it's just not at all even difficult." So I said, "Okay, cool. Well, I go for a walk in the park in the morning. Why don't you join me for a walk?" So we went for a walk and a talk. Ended up finishing the walk with a quick coffee, and I gave him a list of things as to how to deal with that problem and that challenge. And they were pretty uncomfortable things. I could tell he like, on the one hand, he was like, "I've never thought about it that way." On the other hand, he's like, "I don't know, I can pull it off." But he said, "All right, I'm going to go away and do it." And he said, "I won't call you until I've done this and put it into action and show you that I can do it." I went, "Okay, cool." Anyway, today he texted me and he said, "Point number one, here's what I did. Here's how it worked out. Thank you so much. I owe you beers for life." Point number two, and he literally came through. And the reason I'm going to meet with him again is because for me, it didn't feel like a fruitless thing. I've had so many times where I've mentored someone and then they've gone away and I know they've done nothing with it because I've given them some advice that they've felt uncomfortable with. And then this guy, he's just like, no, you tell me what I need to do. I'm off to do it, and I will let you know what happens as a result. And it was really just one of those magic moments of like, oh wow, a 1 hour walk and a coffee has actually totally transformed where this business is going to go.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. Such good advice. All right, so let's flash forward. There you are. You've got this credit card game, 55 days, make it or break it. How did it go? And what were the first steps that you took after you set up that game?
Okay, so we'll have to translate this into 2017 speak. But in 2002, we had these things called newspaper ads. So what we did is So what it was is I had become a real expert in running road shows. So the event marketing side is what I ran for my mentor John, and what that involved is generating an event, booking the venue, filling lots of people at the event. When I say lots of people, 70 to 150 was our sweet spot. I knew how to do it. I knew what ads would work, what ads wouldn't work, all of that sort of stuff. And then I was basically an expert in generating an event and then doing the follow-on component and then stringing a series of events together and running a roadshow. So the company I started was called Triumphant Events, and it was essentially roadshowing products and services. So we focused on the financial services industry. We worked with people who had financial planning, fund advice, pension advice, personal financial management advice as the core product. And we would coordinate road shows around Australia. And on the particular fee, our success fee was about $2,500 per client that we would generate when we had a client. And so basically, the way I launched the business was we ran a quarter-page ad in the newspaper on page 21 of the newspaper, which I knew was the best performing page. So it was a 20 by 3 quarter-page ad with a 1-800 number. We got 75 people to turn up to an event, and then we turned those 75 people into 31 sales, and we got $2,500 per sale. So so the ad costs $7,000 to run. The venue cost about $2,000. The other costs were about $2,000. So very rapidly, I turned about $12,000 into about, I think it was $45,000 came in pretty quickly. And then I flipped it and did it again real fast as soon as that money came in. And then as quick as I could, I got a momentum going up that we were running an event a week. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. And and then 2 events a week. So what started with one event of 70 people that basically turned 12 grand into 45, became 12 grand into 45 every week. And by the end of the year, we'd done $1.3 million in revenue in the first 12 months.
Not bad year one entrepreneurship.
yeah. And there was, and I had 300, just over $300,000 in the bank. Yeah. So my year one, I was 22 I must have been 23 at that point. So I had $300,000 in the bank. I had $1.3 million worth of revenue. And I'd started on a credit card with no other shareholders or no other debts.
Yeah, that's so good. So it seemed like basically testing like viable product to market, like, does this work? That first 12 to 45. And then, as you said, repeat. And for those listening, like with a similar model of scalability, what advice might you give on scalability and looking to kind of increase your revenue based on kind of that similar type of structure?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first really important point was that I'd actually done this before. This is what I was doing for John. So I actually knew it would work. So it sounds crazy to put something on a credit card and all that sort of stuff. But realistically, I'd spent the last 2 years putting stuff on credit card. I'd watched John's business go from zero to millions, because I'd been there as person number 3, right up to person number 50, all in 2 years. So it was just my day job, but from home. I see so many people like running out trying to do something that they know nothing about, and they would be so much better off to just do 12 months working in an environment that actually has it working, before they go off and run off and do something they don't know much about. But for scalability, I always kind of work on this idea of creating what constitutes a unit that you can then scale and replicate. So right now, my scalable model is actually a city model. So where I'm at as an entrepreneur today, I've got a global business, and we work on what we call a city model. And a city model is that I've created a business model that is A cities, B cities, C cities, and S cities. So we have 4 types of cities that we have as models. And an A city is a big city like a London or a Sydney or a Singapore. A B city would be a Melbourne or a Birmingham or a Manchester, and a C city would be a smaller city, maybe less than 1 million people, less than maybe 500,000 people. And an S city is what we have, which is our services business that we've developed as well, which plugs into an A city. So what we do is I work with management consultants now who craft a business plan that is a self-contained, how do you make £2 million? You guys are in the US. So like call it $3 or $4 million, $3 million. So we basically say, how does this city make $3 million? And then how do you replicate that city? So how many people do you need in that city? How many employees? How many, how much advertising budget? All of those things get wrapped up in a bow, and then we just duplicate that city around the world. Nice. So I'm always looking for what is the scalable model. In the early days, the scalable model was get 70 people in a room and make a minimum of 20 sales, and get 2,500 per sale, and repeat that just over and over and over and over. And another thing is that great entrepreneurship is actually about boredom. If you use like a sporting example, a great tennis player doesn't invent a new serve every time, or just randomly always change the way they hold the racket. Once they figure out how to hold the racket and how to serve the ball, they do what works over and over and over again. So one of the key goals is to really just try and get the point where you can crank the handle, and you can do this in a really repeatable, boring way that works.
Yeah, nice. I love that. I found the shiny object syndrome is a term that comes to mind. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I myself at times have been guilty of it, where it's just chasing that next big thing. And so tell me, with this current venture that you have, I imagine it's probably a lot more, lights you up a little bit more than maybe financial services and event roadshows did.
Yeah. So if you think about these three things that you need to come together in order to feel fulfilled, and like I would add a fourth, to feel totally fulfilled in career and entrepreneurship. The three key things are your passion, that you love the work, that the actual work itself, the rolling up the sleeves and doing the thing, is enjoyable. And number two is that you're actually damn good at it and can deliver value and can deliver the result to the client. And number three is that you can create a great financial model around it and can become successful financially from it. If those three things can overlap, then that's the sweet spot. So in the early days, I had 2 out of 3, but I didn't have the third. And today I've got all 3. And the fourth one is contribution, that you can use a business to give back to charity, to society. And now I've got all 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's a deeply fulfilling business.
Yeah, I love that. So for those listening, this is definitely about living your life on fire, how to accelerate your business. And you run these business accelerators is the current venture that you do now. So for those listening that are wanting to start somewhere, with their business, whether it's just an idea phase, maybe it's been going for a few months, maybe it's in the first little bit, what process might you take them through, or what process might you give some advice to that they could use as a model to jumpstart what they're working on?
So most of our clients that we work with now, most of them are established businesses that are 6 and 7 figure revenue currently, and they want to go 7, 8 figure revenue. So a lot of our businesses are a 4 or 5 person team doing $500,000 worth of revenue plus, and then they want to grow. Occasionally we run small startup workshops and camps. So we do, in London, we just had 30 companies that are starting from scratch. And we took them through something called the Threshold Accelerator, which was 6 months to get across the VAT threshold, which is the tax threshold here in the UK, which is about $100,000. So the thing that I see most when people are starting businesses is they do really great things at the wrong time. So for example, creating videos is a really smart thing, but at a certain point. Creating a great website with an amazing landing page, great thing at a certain point. Setting up a platform that allows people to log in and access information, great thing at a certain point. At the earliest stage of business, the very, very beginning of business, there's only really 1 or 2 really smart things to do, and everything else is a waste of time. So, and you're not going to like the things that I like. No one likes my suggestion, but except for when it works, and it always works. So the number one thing you need is a brochure. So if I'm starting a business, even if it was a tech business, even if it was like SaaS, AI, cloud computing unicorn-ness, it would be, we start with a brochure. And what we do is we sit down and we create a beautiful 8-page, 10-page brochure that is going to outline that we would feel so proud putting in front of a customer and saying, this is what we do, and taking them through page by page. Here's our typical customer. Here's the problem that they're experiencing. Here's the solution that we offer. Here's the package. Here's the service that comes with it. Here's the immediate benefits. Here's the long-term relationship of it. Here's the added bonuses. Here's the guarantees. Here's the case studies, the testimonials. Here's the research that backs it all up, right? And I would put together like a 10, 12-page brochure on this product with a designer. And then the second thing is what I call a sign-up form and a terms and conditions. And basically, it's the ability for someone to put down a deposit to hold a unit of this product. So let's say someone wants to launch a retreat business, and they say, I want to have a yoga retreat in Thailand, and I want to take people away to do these amazing yoga retreats in Thailand. Great, 10-page brochure. Here's the resort. Here's this, and I wouldn't even contact a resort. I wouldn't even see how much it is. I wouldn't even look at like all of the stuff of actually trying to put it on. I'd forget all of that. I'd put together the brochure as to what it's going to be like. And then I would sit down. And the trick here is that you need to sit down with about 6 or 7 people a day, every day for 3 or 4 days in a row. And what you need bang, 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 bang. So you need to do an hour's presentation, where you're not thinking about it and you're not psychoanalyzing everything. You're just trying to enroll people to put down a deposit on the thing. So you do 6 or 7 appointments back to back every day for 3 or 4 days. And then at the end of the day, you debrief and you realize, what have we got right? What have we got wrong? Are people worried about price? Are people worried about the distance? Are people worried about the timing of it? Are people worried about our reputation? Like, what is it that people are saying no to? What is it they're saying yes to? But the really important thing is that you're not asking for feedback. You're actually asking for a deposit. So you're saying to people, would you like to? Great. So that's what we're doing. We're taking people on this retreat. We're going to Thailand. We're going to Bali. We're going to have this. It's going to have like juicing and water and a chef and a hot air balloon, and it's all happening. Would you want to put down a deposit of $250 to hold a place on the resort, or hold a place on the thing? It's a completely refundable deposit. We're going to put it into a special account that we won't touch. And they go, oh, well, why don't you contact me a little later? And you say, okay, cool. Look, absolutely fine with that. When you've decided not to go ahead, can I just get 3 or 4 pieces of feedback as to what we could do a bit differently, or what you'd need to see differently in order for you to say yes right now on the spot? And I'm not asking you to say yes right now on the spot, but just, could you give me that feedback? Oh, well, I'd need to see a guarantee, and I'd need to see that this happens and that happens, and it would have to be a little bit cheaper, blah, 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 whatever they say. But you simply don't argue. You just say, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time. I'll get back to you when I've made any changes. Is it okay if I give you a call back in a month and let you know how the product evolves? So from that activity, from that exercise, you figure out real fast whether you've got something or not, and you avoid spending money on websites, you avoid spending money on videos, you avoid spending money on anything that may or may not matter, and you just go to the absolute core of, can I sell this?
Yeah, so good. Do you know Dane Maxwell from the foundation at all?
No,
he calls Dane was also be a part of our summit. He launched this thing called the foundation. He calls this idea extraction, a similar type of process. But I mean, it's perfect. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we spend all this time, but it's like, does this make money or not? This is a business, like if it makes money, and it's a hobby, if not. So, it's so good. Awesome. Yeah. So last little question here about this piece. In terms of generating those people, is that from the phone call specifically? So someone that's listening to this, if they want to find those people, would you recommend they get on the phone, they cold call, or what might you recommend as a way to just get those?
So if I was starting from scratch, I would probably, like, let's say to use the example, let's say it's a yoga retreat in Thailand. I would join a yoga group on Facebook and just let people know, hey guys, I'm putting on a yoga retreat in Thailand. Is anyone interested in something like that? Just send me a personal message or say, yes, I'm interested. And then I'd call those people and tee up a time. I would run maybe £500 worth of ads to a very basic, like, expression of interest type thing, so I could just get a few appointments. I might just do a little thing where I go to a local yoga studio and say, can I put some flyers down, or can I meet with a few of your people? I might look through my LinkedIn and just contact some people who I know. The chances are that realistically, if the most important thing to launch the business is to get 28 appointments, then as soon as that's the one thing that matters, there's 100 ways to do that.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Taking this a step further, and I know this is your expertise, and we're going to move into the rapid fire round, the last part of the show here in just a few minutes. But for those that are in the position where, say, they have, $100,000, $200,000 company, they are looking to scale. If you could give 1 or 2 shortcuts or things that you wish more people in this position could know and internalize, what might those things be?
Yeah. So at that level, we talk about a strategy called being a key person of influence, and there's a stage of business which is about being valuable, and being valuable means I can solve a problem at a better price, better, cheaper, faster than anywhere else, more conveniently than somewhere else, and that's just called being valuable. So my local dry cleaner is valuable. My local hair salon is valuable. My local supermarket down the road is valuable because they solve a problem for me. They're convenient. They're better, cheaper, faster. But they're not influential. I wouldn't cross town for any of those businesses. I wouldn't, if they weren't just down the street, I wouldn't go to them. I wouldn't jump on the bus and go a couple of miles to go to that particular dry cleaner. So there's this point where you run out of being valuable and you have to go into what's called being influential. And being influential really revolves around being a key person of influence. So being a key person of influence requires you get 5 things right, really right. And number 1 is that you need to be able to pitch your idea in a very powerful way, through stories, through examples, through repetition, through crafting the pitch with maybe hundreds of pitches. Number 2 is you need to publish something meaningful. So you need to publish either a white paper, a book, long copy blogs. Number 3 is to create a product ecosystem that reaffirms differentiation and influence. Number 4 is to raise profile and actually be known, liked, and trusted to more people, to be featured in the right places. Number 5 is to do joint ventures and partnerships with companies that are 10 times bigger than you are. Now, if you can do those 5 things really well, if you can get those influence steps happening, then you become a key person of influence. What's happening in the world at the moment is that if you're positioned as a key person of influence, from all over the world, people find you and opportunities come flooding in. So you get inbound opportunities, you get invited on, special trips away, you get investors wanting to throw money at you. So I set out about 7 or 8 years ago to become a key person of influence because I noticed that billions of dollars was being spent on engines that build personal growth and personal brand. Sorry, one second.
Your son.
Yeah, my little boy, he's seeing what I'm doing.
Nice.
I'm on a live call. So as a result of actually getting this right, what actually happened is just a flood of opportunities. So people just, opportunities, investors, being able to speak, all of that sort of stuff happened in a really big way and really fast. So today, one of my biggest issues is we have 2 people managing my inbox of just stuff that comes in. So the next step is becoming influential.
Yeah, I love that. For those that want to be thought leaders, which has in a lot of ways almost become like the new career path, I want to aspire to be a thought leader. And I think that those 5 core elements are usually not present for a lot of people that are pursuing that. If someone hearing this is like, yes, I want to be a thought leader, would you recommend they just follow those 5 steps? Or what do you think about this term? And do you feel like it's, I don't know, oversaturated, or I'm just curious your thoughts about it.
I mean, it's the same. There are a few terms. There's expert. There's I think if you're going to say that you're an expert, you should genuinely be an expert, and that would probably be research and evidence based. A thought leader is less evidence based. It's someone who is picking a direction without evidence and picking like, here's what I think, here's the direction I think we should go in. So it's referencing the future and trying to live into some sort of a future or some sort of a vision. An expert tends to be referencing the past, referencing all the things that have happened up until this point. And it's normally a very narrow field. And then the third one is probably influencer, someone who actually, has a marketplace or an audience watching and engaged, all of that. It's, it's not a bad thing that people want to do this, because at the moment, traditional careers and traditional jobs are being shaken up. Unfortunately, a lot of people are sort of saying, well, what works? And what does actually work is being a go-to person, being known, liked, and trusted, an expert, a thought leader, an influencer, however you want to sort of say it. And if you're going to focus on anything, you focus on those 5 Ps. So pitching, published content, great products, raised profile, and effective partnerships are the 5 things that absolutely set you apart in that category.
Yeah, I love that. All right, rapid fire round. Last part of this interview segment. Are you ready? Series of random questions.
Ready.
All right, question number 1, fill in the blank. If you really knew me, you would know what?
That sometimes I just get sick of entrepreneurship.
Nice. Next question. If you could turn back the time and give a piece of your advice to your 16-year-old self, what might you say to him?
Apparently the acne didn't matter that much.
Nice.
Just be confident. Just be okay.
Nice. What is one habit or one practice that you do daily that you feel sets you up for success?
Pitching. So I have this core belief that you get what you pitch for, and you're always pitching, and that you're either going to pitch for the things that you want, or you're going to pitch yourself out of things that you want. And I really do believe that the pitch that matters is the 1,000th pitch. That if you've got an idea or you've got something big in the world, you got to go out and pitch it 1,000 times and pitch it into the world.
Yeah, love that. Next question. It's a big one to make short, but what is the entrepreneur revolution? What does that mean to you?
The entrepreneur revolution is the idea that if you were to go back in time 300 years ago and hop out of the time machine, you'd probably meet a farmer, because most people worked in farming. If you went back in time 200 years, you'd probably meet a factory worker. If you went back in time any time in the 1900s, you'd meet someone working in a big corporate. And if you go forward in time, you're going to meet people working in small entrepreneurial teams. And that it's a different mindset. The agricultural mindset of farming and waiting and sowing and reaping and all of that is different to the factory mindset, is different to the white collar corporate mindset, and is different to the entrepreneur mindset. And there's a mindset that needs to shift in people, that they need to realize we now live in a different time, we live in a different age. And it's important to shift your mindset into that entrepreneurial team vibe, where you're part of it, you're attractive to an entrepreneurial team.
Love that. And lastly, what does living an unconventional life mean to you?
To me, living an unconventional life is fully embracing the time that we're in, and being more excited about the future than the past, which is a radical act these days. Most people are trying desperately to get back into the past and to be great again. And, here in the UK, we did the whole Brexit thing because we wanted to be great again from our past. And in the US, they wanted to be great again. Who knows what that even means. But I think being unconventional at the moment is fully embracing the times that we live in, and being excited by the idea that there's never been times like this. There's never been a time where an idea can be a global idea, where a group of people can connect with each other deeply, no matter where they are on the planet, where a product can be launched and sell tens of thousands of units, millions of dollars worth of profits in a very short space of time. This is an awesome time to be alive. You can travel, have a family, make an impact, make money, do what you love. Just this is it. Like, what an amazing gift to be born at the right time in the right place in history.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Daniel Priestley, everyone. Daniel, tell us about this giveaway that you've got for one of our listeners that's tuning in right now.
Well, if any of the listeners, or if one of the listeners is somewhere in the world and wants all 3 of my books, then 3 signed copies of the books. And if someone's here in London, then or Singapore, we can do.
Yeah, so details on the page below, and unconventionallifeshow.com will have some more details. Daniel, how can anyone that's hearing this stay in touch with you, learn more about your books, just keep this conversation going if they'd like to?
Just rather that they leave me alone. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
You guys can just comment below. We'll send a message.
Just leave me alone. Just stop it. Follow me on Twitter, Priestley, Instagram, Facebook. I run keypersonofinfluence.com as the major blog, danielpriestley.com as my personal blog. Dent.global is our main business website if you want to check that out and have a look at what we do. And you can email Daniel at dent.global, and there's 2 people waiting to check to have a look. Yeah, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this segment here at the Summit. And Unconventional Life family, thank you so much for tuning in. We've got more amazing content coming at you shortly, and we will talk to you all soon.